Hello and welcome to Women in Workforce. I'm Carrie Rosingana and I'm the CEO for Capital Area Michigan Works, serving the Greater Lansing region. I'll be your host as we bring together women in position of leadership to shine a spotlight on their workforce impacts while also addressing and discussing some of those disparities and challenges that are unique to women in workforce.
And I'm Kate Snyder. I'm the CEO of Piper & Gold Public Relations, and I'll be joining Carrie each episode as co-host. This show really aims to be a platform for discussion and giving us a chance to shine a light on those disparities that women face professionally, but also to talk about solutions and highlight what we can do to promote change.
So each episode, we will host a roundtable style discussion with our fellow community leaders. And today we're gathered at Risky Studios in East Lansing, Michigan, and we're so grateful that you're spending some time with us today.
All right, so when we get a group of awesome female leaders together, our intros alone could fill this whole episode, which is why we're asking you to introduce yourselves by summing up your bio in just one sentence.
But more importantly, we want to make sure that we're normalizing what it means to be a human and a leader. And so we would like each of you to talk, if you're willing to, about behind your bio. Tell us what you want people to know about you and to understand about who you are and how you read that couldn't be read in your bio. So I would say for myself, I'll start just to kind of give you an example. I really believe in leadership that is driven by serving my community and that is driven by serving the people that I work with on my team. So servant leadership is certainly at the heart of everything that I do. Behind the scenes, though, I am a musician. I am somebody who is deeply creative and also a bit of an introvert when I'm not in my job from 8 to 5. So that's a little bit behind the scenes about me. Kate, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my bio is that I have that heart of a public servant. I have spent the majority of my career, whether it was working at PR agencies or working in-house at government agencies, working with government and really making sure that I was a responsible steward of the taxpayer dollar and that I believe that people have a right to access the services that they pay for and that are provided as a part of our society. And I take it very seriously, helping make sure that they get connected with those. Behind my bio, I would say that I am, I don't want to use an answer I've used before, and I'm stumped now, and all I can think of is that I'm fueled by anxiety. Like, I am anxiety personified. Behind the bio, what do people need to know? Well, if there's an interpretation of anxiety and neurodivergence, I am a walking textbook for that. So, just pick your flavor of neurodivergence, and that pretty much sums me up behind the bio.
I don't think you've used that one before.
No, I really don't think I have.
I love the honesty, too. Rawness.
So with that, we're going to introduce you all and give you a chance to talk about your behind the bio, too.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to start by welcoming Michelle Lantz, who is the CEO of the Greater Lansing Food Bank. So Michelle, you get to be first. Share your bio, behind the scenes, and what you'd like folks to know.
Thank you. So first of all, I relate to both of you in the servant leadership part of it. Yeah. That has been my MO since I was born. I'm behind the scenes. I'm a farm kid. So I come at this from a very different lens than growing up in a city like what I have been now for 30 years. But always been either in the nonprofit field or as like Kate as a PR person serving nonprofits. But deep in my soul, really, what I am is a mom. I'm a mom of 2 grown boys. And they are obviously the loves of my life. On top of that, I am a mother of a Amazon parrot who I adopted during the pandemic. A lot of people went to the Humane Society and adopted dogs and cats, and I decided to adopt an exotic. So, and on top of that, I've been ballroom dancing for 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, the creative side of me, I feel that too.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh my gosh, I got distracted and I forgot to turn my page. The parrot got me. Okay, so next up, I am super excited to introduce you to Michelle Richard, the Deputy Director for Higher Education at the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential. You'll hear us refer to it as MiLEAP throughout the episode. So you get to share your one-sentence bio and what's behind that bio.
So I've spent my entire career working in education, and I think a lot about how do we kind of hip check the systems that serve our kids to help make them a little bit better. And so I started as a classroom teacher. I've done some work at the state policy level, inside of government, outside of government, in early childhood, now in higher education. And so at all of those places, how can we help people really have the brightest future possible? And that is just so front of mind for me right now, because like Michelle, I am also a mom to 2 boys, but mine are on the other end of the spectrum. So they're going into 1st grade and 3rd grade next week. I can't believe we're at back to school season. And I think the surprising thing for me is I have suddenly found myself a soccer mom. Which is fully unexpected, frankly. And so we have the backpack, we've got the team, and so we're jumping in 1st, 3rd grade and soccer season. But again, like just thinking about how other people are showing up in this space and what I want for my little humans and what they want for their little humans, even if their little humans are grown adults, as you said. What can we do to be in their corner?
Absolutely. That's perfect. And Michelle, I know firsthand from working with you how much you care about all things education, and you're a huge advocate for it. So our final guest today is Emma Selby, who is the owner and event manager at emheesun Creative. Emma, your turn. What's your one-sentence bio, and what can we see behind your scene in your bio?
Oh, this is a great question. I own and run an event management business because I just love getting to do so many different types of things. Like that's what I found is, and I used to work for Kate and for Carrie, really. Yeah. So this is super fun.
No pressure. Double bosses on the couch.
Not anymore, friends.
Yeah, you're
exactly right.
You're an entrepreneur baller now.
But I got so much experience working in PR, working really closely with workforce development, and I realized at the end of the day, I love helping people express their creativity. I love helping people make the big moments in their life happen. And so I get to do all of that through running an event venue, planning weddings, conferences, all of these types of things. And I think behind that, it's that same idea that I just love being a cheerleader and getting people excited and being on their team. I'm really good at I joke that I'm a chameleon because I think that I can just help people feel comfortable in the different circumstances. And so doing event work, there's a lot of that needs to happen. I'm very good with Mother of the Brides.
That is a special skill.
Yeah. But just, I especially when it comes to any type of event, whether it's corporate, nonprofit, personal, there's so much at stake, and there's a lot of people dynamics that go into it, and I found that's what I enjoy the most, is just helping people feel good and comfortable and confident so they can go into the event and have the best time they possibly can.
Love that.
That's friggin' great. Okay, so we have compiled 5 big questions that are focused on your career paths, workforce development, and more. But we learned last season that we won't get through more than one question. That just isn't going to happen. Which is why we have this.
Oh, boy.
I know. It's really great.
It's the base.
I emptied it of markers before we came in here.
The elementary teacher in me is just loving this right now.
Okay. Well, then here you go.
Summer camp counselor here.
You can pull a question out of the proverbial hat. And that is going to be our question for today. So
I hope I did well for the group.
I'm sure you did.
Yes. You picked the perfect question.
Yes.
Because that's how the universe works.
Ooh.
That's right.
Oh, but this is a really fun, interesting one. Because some people might not do well with this answer. But this one, you all have direct, yes. How does your current role or career path tie into development of the region's workforce? So how does your current role, we never got to this question a single time last season, not once. I'm pretty sure, it's question 5. Last season, we never made it. Yep. So how does your current role or career path tie into the development of the region's workforce?
How apropos for the person who chose it.
I was going to say, I feel like it's a little unfair because this is so obviously connected.
Seriously.
Beautiful. This is so perfect.
But just wait, because
you can start us off and it gives us time to think.
But y'all got answers. I know that.
I'm here for it. So I work for a brand new state department. We are 8 months old. Yes, I pitched using those little baby blocks to mark our monthly anniversaries. And yes, the comms people were like, we are not doing that. But I also have the pleasure of serving as the state's first leader for an Office of Higher Education. We've never had a position like that as a state. And I think what that really signals for the state legislature, for the governor, is just this commitment and vision that says, hey, we know post-secondary education matters a whole lot for people's life trajectory. If you want the brightest future possible, going to great universities like Michigan State, like LCC, like all of our public and private institutions really sets you up for success. It's not the only pathway, but it is the brightest pathway for so many of our people. And so one of our biggest jobs is how do we make that a whole lot more affordable for people? And so we're having conversations with people who see themselves as workforce leaders, with people who don't see themselves as workforce leaders, and saying, hey, in all the places where you show up, tell people that college is more affordable than they might think. Tell them that they can go back to school at any point in their life with programs like Michigan Reconnect. That 18-year-olds can go to community college tuition free, brand new, in this state through the Community College Guarantee. I mean, I think that has been a real incredible opportunity for this work to just have such a direct connection that your career goals, your personal goals, there are tools to be able to make that possible for you, regardless of how much money's in your pocket, where you live in this state, or what your dreams and aspirations are. And so we're just trying to figure out, how do you break into? It's great to have tools. And if no one knows about them, they don't actually work. And so that is our focus right now, is we have this incredible team that knows how to turn a crank and make sure that scholarship dollars get from the legislature all the way to colleges and students. And we're trying to get in places like this one to say, here are some opportunities that are available. And get you leaving here being like, here's the people I'm going to tell.
Your job is all about that future workforce.
Yes,
and
every day.
Now.
All day.
Absolutely, Michelle.
All right, who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Great.
Yeah. Because as a food bank, right, we support education and children. So right now in Michigan, really across the nation, 1 in 5 children is food insecure.
Breaks my heart.
And in some of the worst counties, like Clare County right now is the worst county in our entire state of Michigan, not just, food bank. Our food bank serves 7 counties, so we go up to Clare. But through the entire state, Clare County has the worst food insecurity rate of any county. Even higher than Detroit, even higher than an Upper Peninsula, very rural county community. Partly because there's not a lot of good paying jobs up there, and then resources are scarce, right? So we're feeding kids of all ages. College campuses have some of the worst hunger rates. So when we're talking about higher education, we have food pantries on every college campus that is in our service area. And most food banks do around the state as well. So if you're hungry, you can't learn. If you're hungry, you're not going to be able to do your job. You're going to be focused on something else. If you have the wrong types of food, you're going to, have chronic conditions that are going to impact your ability to work and also to just progress into higher paying jobs because you're going to have illnesses. You're not going to be at, work as much as your food non-insecure, food secure colleagues. So our work really is revolved around making sure that people not only have food just because that's the thing we all need, but so they can become more and more successful and then move up in the what's the word I'm looking for, gang? In their economic growth, so that they don't have to rely on food banks and other nonprofit or government resources that are out there.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how food insecurity, or if food insecurity, because I may be making an assumption here, disproportionately affects women in those, often societally projected caregiver roles?
Yeah, it does. Right now, especially because childcare is so expensive. So if you're a single, person, whether it be female or male, although, females still make less on the dollar, so there's some of that goes into it. But if you're having to pay for childcare or choose going to work, a lot of women are having to opt out because it's more expensive than a mortgage nowadays. Childcare is, right? And we are, I think you're doing a lot of research in
Michelle
the
and
childcare
I.
area,
Yeah.
right? So you could give us better statistics on, the number of openings, right, versus the number of children that actually need openings in childcare centers, and it's skewed. So, yeah, when you're talking about somebody going to work or not, sometimes it's not always about whether I want to, or it's whether you can financially.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michelle, I know your other friend Michelle on the couch too, and we would agree with that. I mean, when you are having to make choices to put your child in a safe place, sometimes you have to look for those other resources, and food is sometimes something that someone is going to need those additional resources for. And we see that all the time with the work that we do too, with the programs that we serve too. We say, if Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you do not have those basic needs that are met of shelter and of food, to expect someone to be in a place that they're ready to learn and to be able to hold a career in some instances, they already have the cards stacked against them if some of those factors have not been addressed. So the work you do is really important to help make sure that barrier is addressed for folks.
Yeah, and if you add on anything from some type of disability to, even ethnicities, and, add on all of those factors, right, that we know also are disenfranchising people that are living right around our area, it becomes even harder.
It does. Absolutely.
All right, Emma, your tie to workforce.
Yes. Well, that's a lot to follow. But no, I think what's interesting is thinking about, as somebody who grew up in the Lansing area and has chosen to stick around, the idea of developing the workforce here is very personal to my life and career in that aspect. And particularly because I was somebody who was get me the heck out of Dodge. I'm not staying here. And that was never my plan. And then I attended LCC because I had a scholarship for 2 free years of school. And then I attended MSU because I was really excited about a program they had. And then I started working for Kate and Carrie, and then the world shut down, and here I still am. And so it was just a funny timeline of things. And my husband isn't from around here, but he had moved here for a job, and we met, and then he found another job he really liked in the area. So it's interesting to think about hearing you both talk as somebody who has been here my life and seen how people are impacted in the area and see how things have changed. Just on a personal note, I think that's interesting. And then a lot of the work that I'm doing is to get people to enjoy Lansing.
Yes.
And enjoy the area. So whether it's, again, those personal weddings and celebrations and these celebratory, exciting events that people do, that they are choosing to mark a really important time of their life here, whatever that looks like for them. And then on some of the bigger things, I am also the festival director with the Capital City Film Festival. And our whole goal with that is to showcase our creative, incredible community here in the Lansing area, and have these international films and these national projects come here to Lansing. And just this last weekend, I was in New York for a quick little trip. Went saw a Broadway show. Was thinking of you both while I was there.
Oh yeah, what'd you see?
We saw Hadestown. I melted. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. But I met up with somebody who acted in our closing night film this past year at the Capital City Film Festival, because she and her husband They live in New York City, and they had come along with the other co-director to the festival, and they came and hung out for like 4 days, and they really just took in everything Lansing had to offer. And she told me verbatim when I was there, she was like, after like 15 minutes of being there, I was like, hey, should we move to Michigan? This place kind of rocks. She was like, I kind of love it here. And it was fun because we got to be kind of the beginning of their film festival journey. And as they've gone on to these other festivals, we keep getting feedback from them and from other people about how much they enjoyed ours, which is really exciting when like they're showing in Italy like next month, and they're going to be in Australia, and they're like these really incredible places, and they still talk about like, we joke about like our little festival here in Lansing and how much they loved it, how well they were treated, how unique it was, and how many opportunities there are for creative people to do work in Michigan, which is really cool to see. So I think as somebody who was kind of like reluctantly still here at first, my goal now in the work I'm doing is to make it so that people are excited to be here, so that there are things to do on the weekends and on the evenings, so that they have something exciting to look forward to, and so that people have that, wait, should we move to Lansing?
Yes,
thing?
yeah.
Because that's the goal. And you know, if we can make it not only a fun place to live, but also have great opportunities for work, then I don't know why we wouldn't be attracting more talent to the area.
It's so funny. Before I got into workforce development, I mean, I don't think very many people go to MSU, for example. I know when I went, I wasn't like, I'm going to major in workforce development. But when you are immersed in it, you realize, like, it's connected to everything. Everything that all of you do, everything that everybody that I've ever met is connected in a way to workforce, because we're all wanting to make sure that we're offering places that are enjoyable, that people want to be. You have to have people to work to do that work. You're preparing the future through the work you're doing. You're making sure that our people have what they need to be able to work. And it's just really, I think it's an amazing thing to be able to look at all those connection points that maybe you wouldn't think about from the outside looking in.
One of the reasons that last season, you know, this question got thrown into the mix despite never getting used was because, from my perspective, folks might not know, but I have a background in workforce development. So, like, yes, I am the CEO and founder of a PR agency, but for almost a decade prior to that, I worked in the Michigan Work system alongside Carrie, and before that, I worked at a small agency that did a lot of government work. And so, you know, we still work with a lot of workforce development clients, you know, talent, workforce, higher ed. They're also intrinsically linked, you know, early childhood education, K through 12. Like, Emma just knows where I'm basically listing like our client list, but it, you know, like, they're also inextricably linked. And so it's interesting, like, when we talk about workforce, I really wanted that question in there because in my mind, there is not a single person that can't somehow make a connection to workforce, whether it's growing a small business and becoming a job creator, whether it is doing work that improves the region, whether it is making it so that people can go to school and go to work and be secure, whether it's building the systems and changing the systems so that there's better equity and so that we can, you know, help mitigate the disparities as much as humanly possible at a systemic level. Like, anyone can find a way in which they're connected to workforce, and it's something that, you know, you don't spend 20 years on workforce if you're not passionate about it. And I sometimes can find myself getting into this, like, I remember back in 2007 when we started the very first, like, well, we thought it was the first. It probably wasn't even the first, but we thought it was the first really concerted effort to help connect the university with downtown Lansing. And we started up Linking Lansing and You. Shout out to all my old school Linking Lansing and You folks. Gosh, most of us are still in the region. What? That's not the case with a lot of other of those efforts, but to, like, you know, break that talent divide. And we always used to say, like, basically get people past the 127,
Yes.
496 bridge and stuff like that. It can feel like you're having the same conversations over and over and feel disheartening. But like hearing you talk about it, Emma, like it just kind of helped me have a light bulb moment of like, no, it's not disheartening. Like it's just like sexism, disparities for women in the workplace, you know, racism, homophobia, any conversation, it will never not be important. You'll never be done having those conversations and these kind of things. How do you improve a community? How do you make sure people are cared for? How do you make it a place that people want to be? Like, you literally never get to stop having those conversations.
I think it's that like Lego building. It's like you're never going to just all of a sudden have the finished product. You're going to build it Lego block after Lego block. And sometimes you're going to be stepping on them, right? Like, and I think that it's such an important piece of being able to mark those moments along the way. What you said, Emma, so resonated with me because you want to be able to create energy and momentum for people while you're having these very incremental wins along the way, that when you look back, you're fundamentally changing what that pathway opportunity look like for people. But it's hard to see in the moment. And having recordings like this one to be able to say, oh yeah, remember when? That helps. I think that's a big part of it. And having people who are willing to brag about the work that they're doing and celebrate it and continue to show people why they should be here and why they should be a part of a solution, that's incredible. I think the biggest challenge is when it's like, that's not my problem to solve. And being able to bring people to the table that says all of us have to own this and all of us contribute in a really meaningful ways, that's energizing, especially in those down days.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? We have to realize that. And it's okay to keep talking the same talk over and over again. So when I graduated, and we were talking about like 3 generations here basically sitting on the couch, right? So when I graduated from MSU and started working at the Chamber of Commerce in downtown Lansing, the Lansing Chamber, we didn't have anything on Michigan Avenue right now that is here now, right? There was no Lugnut Stadium. There was no the districts, you know, there wasn't any of that. We had literally seedy 1-hour motels that were across from where the Lansing Center is now. So when you look at that incremental change that has happened over that 30-year span, we've come an incredible way.
Absolutely.
And all of that contributes to the workforce development, right? Because I think the thing we haven't really talked about yet is when large-scale employers look at different regions to resettle in, which you need the employers to come so that you have jobs for these, for the workforce, right, that we're all impacting, they're going to look at this kind of stuff. They're going to look at what are the events that are happening in the area? Is it going to be fun for their employees? Are they going to be able to have a life outside of work? You know, all of these other things. Are there resources for their employees who might be struggling based on, you know, issues that come up that are no fault of their own? So, you know, a car accident, for example, and all of a sudden you have all these medical bills. You're going to need community resources. So they're looking at all of these
Business
things.
Resource Network at Capital Area Michigan.
Thanks for the plug, Kate.
You're welcome.
Insert plug here. But yeah, so all of the things that we're talking about today, I think, also impact the workforce from the other side. So, you know, there's a couple of large-scale auto manufacturers that are parts manufacturers that are coming into town. They looked at regions around the United States, probably around the globe.
And beyond.
And have chosen here because of all the things we're talking about.
So you were talking about, you know, that business attraction component, and you know, we talk a lot in economic development about hunting and gardening, and so this is a perfect segue for us. You know, there's that hunting approach, like go get the big companies that want to open a North American headquarters or want to open a new facility or you know, want to come to the U.S. or whatever it is. And then there's the gardening approach, you know, the Emmas of the world of like supporting entrepreneurs and lifting them up. So for our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the gardening approach.
So we call this segment Facts and Feelings. So have you ever heard the phrase, look at the facts, not the feelings, in leadership or in therapy in some cases?
Emma has definitely heard that phrase.
Yep. So we want to talk about
Because
facts
I have to
and
say it a lot. Because when I get in my feelings, I need some facts.
Yeah, I think
That's where
I
you
spun that
text
one back
me.
at you, too.
Yes, like Kate, facts.
So I'm going to share some related facts and ask you to share how these facts make you feel. So here are the facts, and I know some of you on the couch are numbers people, so this might be really good for you. So only 15.2% of entrepreneurs are women, yet nearly 13 million businesses are started by women in the United States. Next fact, almost 15% of U.S. women in business indicated that they have entrepreneurial intentions as of 2021. The Michigan Economic Opportunity Fund launched in 2023, which has created a $10 million micro business loan program for women, veterans, and entrepreneurs of color in Michigan. And finally, the Michigan's first ever statewide workforce plan released this year details an initiative to expand tailored internship and mentorships for people of women and color, entrepreneurs specifically, by engaging with those diverse subject and founders matter experts. So what are your immediate reactions to hearing some of these statistics?
Well, first of all, it kind of transported my brain back to like the one-on-ones that we used to have, and that I would have also with Cassie at Piper and Gold, where we would be talking about these, because I've always wanted to, I've had an entrepreneurial spirit, I can say it that way, and I think that in having that, I still don't feel like I think like a business owner, and there's like this disconnect between like, I want to create things, I want to help people, I have my own ideas and opinions and strategies of how these things can happen, but it doesn't feel like it quite fits on like how you're supposed to do these things. And one of those ways where that really hits me is goal setting. So it transported me back, because I remember one time, and I'm sure Cassie watching this is going to remember this too, because I kind of yelled at her in a one-on-one once when she was trying to make me set goals, and I said, Cassie, goals do not work for me. Do not make me do that. I was like, please, I beg you. Because I was like, here's the deal. If we set traditional goals for me, like I am either going to achieve the goal, and so then I just did the thing I said I was going to do, so I am just a reliable, consistent person doing my job, or I didn't hit the goal and I'm a failure. And I was like, this is how my brain works, so this isn't going to work for me. And that, like, I think about that a lot since I've left, because I've had to retrain my brain on how to make this like entrepreneurial thing work if all of those like how to run a successful business seminars do not work with how my brain does. And I think that it's largely, not fully, and everybody's brain works so differently anyway, but a lot of it is because our systems are built on these very traditional male patriarchal ideas of how businesses, how professionalism, how all of these things are supposed to run. And like, I'm planning fun little parties and like other great, wonderful things, but the way that I'm going to approach that is going to be different than the 12-step seminar on how to have how to reach your business goals, because I'm not going to follow any of the steps. Yeah. And so I think that like it's interest, like hearing those facts, I'm like, well, this makes sense to me when I hear them, because I think there are a lot of women who have these entrepreneurial ideas, who have these kind of things they're reaching for, but it doesn't fit into the way that like a traditional starting a business model looks like. And so it's harder to put it into action in a way that's like understood by people, in a way that's like embraced by other people. And I think a lot of women naturally are entrepreneurs, are problem solvers. That's just kind of like what we're conditioned to do, but not in like the business, professional, corporate world of things.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
I think we use different language to talk
sure.
about it than, you know, and if you look at the traditional business books or business models, right, probably were more, and this is just because it was at the time, like written by males, or the, you know, the typical 1960s through 1980s, like how you build a business, right? And now we're in the 2024, and we just do things differently nowadays. So I think looking at the models, yep, they can be helpful, but just like any theory, right, when you're studying it, putting it into practice or in reality, it's two very different things. So I had my own PR consulting firm for about 12 years, and I have a very entrepreneurial spirit as well. But I literally did that because I had children and I didn't want to be out of the house for 60 hours a week while they were little, because I knew I would miss it, right? Yeah. So for me, it was, how can I have what seemed like the best of both worlds? Like we always try to do that as females, right? We're juggling a lot of things. And for me, it was to have a home-based business that I could do with a babysitter or a nanny or a caregiver or something in the house, so that I could still have that mom time, but also continue to use my brain in a way that I knew eventually, when, like now, they're out of the house, I could go back in the workforce full time if I didn't want to grow my PR business, and then give back to the community again in that way. So it was a time for me to step away from the workforce for a little while, but still be a business owner. And I feel the same as you, Emma, where I don't think I did it in the traditional way. I don't think I followed the model. And I think that's what made it successful for me, right? Successful for you. So you had mentioned the very first statistic was a 15% of women. Can you repeat that one?
Only 15.2% of entrepreneurs are women, yet nearly 13 million businesses are started by women in the United States.
So you had asked, how does that kind of make us feel, or what do we think about that? My question is, out of that 15.2%, then what is the percentage that is successful of the businesses versus maybe male counterparts or whatever? That would be, to me, a better indicator of, okay, let's talk about, the success of women. It's sad to me that it is still only 15.2%. I thought it would be higher than that. I don't know. Maybe you kind of knew that all along, Michelle, with because of your career, but that was surprising to me that it was so low.
It makes me wonder how you count an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
I was wondering
That's
that too.
raise your hand, and it's like
true.
There we
because
go.
Seriously.
we have about 4,000 home-based childcare businesses in the state.
Right.
And my gut is that a lot of them would raise their hand and say they're educators or they're childcare professionals, and that they wouldn't necessarily raise their hand and say they're entrepreneurs. I think some of them would say they're business owners, and I think there are certainly a portion who would say they're entrepreneurs. I don't want to take that away from anyone. Yeah. And I just think it's interesting to think about, both of you have talked about trying to create your own path, and I think we see that so often. And so how do we know when you're creating that own path, how to kind of count you in these statistics? And so are we missing people?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I feel like the only times I call myself an entrepreneur are like very tongue-in-cheek. Like they're not, like that's not what I identify my like professionalism or career to be. I'm like, I am an event manager, I am an artist, I am a business owner, I am all of these things, but entrepreneur is never the word that comes first. And like my husband and I use it like jokingly. And we don't use it legitimately when we use that word usually. Like we're usually like poking fun at something when we're using that. And so we think, and I volunteered with middle school and high school students for a long time. And there's so many young women who would start little businesses of their own, babysitting, nannying, selling bracelets, making weird jewelry, like making all kinds of cool things and selling it, or doing all these little different things. But I don't think any of those 19-year-olds, 19, 14, whatever, would say like, oh yes, I'm an entrepreneur. And I think some of it is in the language and how people identify. Even though they are, but like what does that really look like in a statistic?
And if you don't use the language, are you missing out on opportunities for funding?
I know,
for mentorship? And the answer is absolutely yes. So what can we do to label things, but not have people leave feeling like, oh, they just pat me on the head and called me an entrepreneur and joke with your husband at your dinner table
for
later.
For
You don't want that either.
Oh, definitely. And I think part of it is, and this is just a way you've heard things used, and what a lot of times when I would hear entrepreneur, I think part of the reason why I know like in running my business, I've struggled with that as a term, is because I don't have like a tangible thing, because it's like, it's my brain. And I know we've talked about this, and it's not like, oh, I own a small store. Like our dear friends at Dear Ollie and on Novel Concept, like they are entrepreneurs. They like have this tangible thing that they have worked to create. And I am on my couch in my PJs most days, like working on my laptop, which doesn't like, and I don't say that to like illegitimize what I'm doing, because I'm doing really hard, really good work. But I think that, again, just in the terminology of like how you use it, I wouldn't, in my brain, like entrepreneur doesn't connect to the types of work that I'm doing, which I know isn't the reality of it, but it's just, I think, a perception thing.
Well, and it's a perception thing, and it's a reception thing. Like when you said how many people would self-identify as an entrepreneur, and all those childcare workers, and part of Carrie and I's like bond going back. My mom was a childcare administrator, so I worked, every summer in her centers, and saw that whole, oh man, it's just its own world, right? And when you said that, I wanted to like football spike my pen, like, yes, because it resonated so true. But like also, how are we conditioned to receive and think about an entrepreneur when, the cover of Inc., the cover of Fast Company, the cover of Forbes, I'm dating myself by saying the cover of, but, but like all those magazines, like growing up, that's like, who did I see on the front of those? Sure wasn't me. And so like, how long was I very purposefully, when I started as an entrepreneur, apparently, didn't call myself CEO or president. I was the principal strategist for a really long time, because I just didn't see myself as like a CEO. I'm doing PR. Okay, like, yeah, I'm running a company that does PR too, but I'm doing PR. And when Carrie got the camera job and became CEO, I was like, I want to be a CEO. I was like,
I remember this.
Yes, like I literally was like, Carrie gets to be a CEO. That's like really cool. I want to be a CEO. And I legit was like, I'm going to change my title, because I am an entrepreneur. I started this company. If I want to call myself CEO, I can call myself CEO. But that was 10 years into my small business ownership journey, right? And even then, I don't know if I believed that I was a CEO. It was just more, I'm really good at PR, and I happen to run a company.
I do think those facts and those numbers, I agree with you, Michelle. I wonder, how many people self-identify themselves out of those counts that we're doing to actually get an accurate total for those. And I do think, when you talk about expanding tailored internship and mentorship programs, that's really critical, because, just like you said, Emma, and you did too, Michelle, there isn't a one-way fits all for this to work, and for you to start a business and be an entrepreneur and to get the resources that you need. And how do we create a system and a process for people to be able to connect with others whose brains think the way that they think, and maybe operate in a more similar manner than they're reading about in a book or attending a seminar with. And I think, the programs that are offered even at some of the community colleges nowadays, or at the colleges and universities.
MSU.
They have great programs and supports to do that. But I think you also need that mentorship and that internship to help build that skill set that you're going to need to be successful.
Yeah, and I want more products and experiences and businesses that are tailored for me and for the people that I love and care about. And that means having more entrepreneurs, because I think that there's probably a counting issue there, but there's certainly a disproportionate representation of women in starting businesses and creating products and creating experiences. So what can we all do to continue to push the narrative about what people think is possible? I just think it's incredibly brave to see people who are stepping out and saying, I have something to offer. And I'm willing to put down rent in this downtown business to make that a reality. And so from shopping at those places to celebrating them, I just think we have to continue to look inward at where there are opportunities to be champions there.
Yeah. And we have to shine a light on those examples too, just like you talked about who's on the cover of those magazines back in the day, who's online and being showcased in these stories. How do we make sure that there's equitable representation in those opportunities too, so that we don't start to see people not counting themselves for what they're actually doing.
You know, what's interesting to me, it's striking me too, is I look around in the nonprofit sector here in the region. The majority of us now in the CEO positions or executive directors or president or whatever it's called have turned female. And I don't know if that's unusual for other communities, if that's just sort of our community. But I wonder the why behind it. Part of it is you really have to do for yourself, you have to decide, I'm going to take this on, right? It's a big leap. There's a lot of emotional, not just like physical time that you put into this, but it's your all, right? For me, it's 24/7. It's not just like I can turn it off when I go home.
Right.
And I think, which is easier, of course, now that the boys are gone, right? I can talk about my boys a lot. It wouldn't have been as easy for me to do when they were home because I would have felt like I was giving something up. Because again, can't have it all, might want to try, but so I think, it takes yep, I'm going to do it for whatever, and a lot of maybe women in previous generations, and I don't want to get into that too much because one of my biggest mentors, Kelly Rossman McKinney, right? She broke the mold in PR, generation before me, to make it even accessible for women like me to do what I did. But she also had to give up a lot at the same time. So you have to be willing to say yes to everything that comes with a CEO or executive or entrepreneurial role, because it is more than what you see on the surface, or just more than those 40-hour weeks, when you're in the job.
And so often you have to be starting from a place of privilege to even be able to say yes.
Yes,
right? Like
exactly.
You're starting from a place of privilege that, whether that's familial support systems, how before all the amazing supports that you're creating for college funding, like how much post-secondary education debt you have had to assume, or so many different aspects of it. Like not everyone, like we were saying before, like not everyone could even say yes if they wanted to, because they just don't have those supports that come with privilege to be able to say yes.
Absolutely.
Y'all, we just blew past our timer. It's fine. That's great. Just tackling the world's issues
time?
Here. So
Time is a concept.
That's right.
Mariah
Yeah,
Carey said,
right.
time is not something I acknowledge. That's what Mariah Carey said. Hold on about that.
I love that you threw it. That might be the first Mariah Carey reference we've
You're welcome.
yeah. So with that, we're gonna give you a couple of seconds here to think about your big takeaways and your 3 words while we start to wrap things up. So 3 words, what you hope others will take away, or what you're taking away from this conversation.
And while you work on those 3 words, I want to thank each of you for your time, for your candor, and for your vulnerability today. So thank you to our guest, Michelle Lantz, the CEO of the Greater Lansing Food Bank, to Michelle Richard, the Deputy Director of Higher Education at MiLEAP, and to Emma Selby, owner and event manager at emheesun Creative. So for me, I'll start just while you all are finishing yours. There are 3 words that came to mind pretty easily for me today. The first was access. I heard us all talk a lot about accessing, those resources that you need, the tools, the supports, food access. Those are all things, that was one of the words that resonated with me today. The other one is opportunity. We need to create those opportunities. We need to celebrate those opportunities to help empower others to be able to know where those things are for their own lives. And then the last one for me that I would just add is appreciation. I appreciated each of you being here today because I learned a lot and things I didn't know about you that made me just have an even greater sense of appreciation for you all as leaders in this community. So with that, I will turn it. Who would like to go next? Anybody?
I'll start.
Okay, that'd be great, Michelle.
So I had a phrase. Mine's brag about it.
Oh,
I thought there was such a reminder here.
yeah.
To celebrate, be clear about what we're doing, the incredible things that are happening, and give people kudos and energy to keep that momentum going.
Love that. Perfect. Emma?
Well, my first word comes from you. Lego. Legos. Just because I think I really liked that picture of the idea that like it's and I think it encompasses a lot of things, right? Because it's this idea that all these small pieces, you can see the incremental change, and when you look back at all these little things that you put together, you can see the bigger picture. And then it was also making me think of my next word, which went along with the Lego thing, of support, because of this idea that like we all have to be supporting each other, supporting the other initiatives that are happening, knowing what's going on in sectors that are different than your own so that you can find ways to support each other, because I think that's when the best work happens. And again, you kind of see that in like the Lego visualization there. And then, what was my third word? I had another one. Oh, language. Just in thinking about how we talk about things changes the reality of them. So the language that we use in discussing ourselves and our businesses, the people that we are working with, the people we're serving, the communities, the language really matters because that kind of shifts how you think about it all.
Nice. I'm going to ask for permission to have 4 words.
I mean,
Permission granted.
we don't really have rules here.
We're not that formal.
Thank you. Thank you. And 2 of them, I think, came from Kate, was the facts and feelings, right? Because I think
That comes from a therapist.
Okay, well,
I can't take
thank you,
credit for that
therapist,
one.
Right. So, because I think as leaders, you have to constantly be thinking of both.
That's
Right.
true.
None of us have companies or events or whatever without the people, without your staff, without your clients, without. And there's a lot of feelings going on with the people that we work with, right? Widgets don't make themselves if you have a company. And so it's important to have those facts and figures because you need to know what your growth looks like and, focus on the goals that you want to achieve, right? But at the same time, if you're not being motivational, if you're not being helpful to the people that you're either employing or, helping in education or whatever, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to have both. So I really liked the whole facts and feelings. And then the other one was just say yes. And, we're a women in workforce podcast or webcast today. So I just want to remind, I guess, all the listeners who are out there, especially if they're younger women who are thinking about jumping in and doing things, just say yes to it. What's the worst that can happen, right? Like you don't succeed. Okay, what does that mean? You start over. You do something else.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak to your heart. Okay, then you can find something that does. But if you don't say yes to start with, you're never going to know, and you're not going to really get anywhere. So, so there's my 4.
Oh man. Okay. Now you're gonna make me want. You made me want to change my words.
That's allowed. I heard there aren't rules.
Yes, that's
All right. So
Blow the rules out.
So before that, I want to thank you all for being here. I'm just so grateful. Like this particular episode, like Michelle, we've worked together for a really long time, and you've always been a mentor to me and someone that I really respect as a fellow PR practitioner and someone that I, have taken so much from. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get my feels, apparently. I don't even like feels. I fucking hate feels, but I'm not going to look at you when I say this or else it'll make me more feels, but I am just like so fucking proud of you, and you're doing amazing things, and I love it, and it's wonderful, and I'm just so happy to have you here and to have you to just be able to be a part of your journey. Thank you. And like we were saying before the episode, Michelle and I, how have we not played together before because we have crossed, like, our worlds are so intersected.
100%.
And I'm so excited that, and then when you said Lego, I was like, oh, she had me at Lego. Yes, thank you. So I'm just really grateful to have the three of you on the couch, and of course to be here with Carrie having this conversation. So my 3 words, fuck it, we're gonna have two batches of 3 words. The first one's own your shit. And that's something I just kept hearing over and over. Like, if goals look different, cool. Yeah, own it. Like, go for it. If, like, you know, like, however we want, you know, like, raising your hand and being counted, and as an entrepreneur, as whatever, or don't, like, that, just all of that. Like, it really is about having that, like, sense of self and that inner conviction to do it. And then my other 3 words, hearing you talk, Michelle, don't fear failure. Like, that's something that, like, and then what you were saying about the, like, I can't set a goal because if I don't hit that goal, it's failure. And, like, starting to, like, okay, so what's failure? Like, yep. So, and that, like, that's a lifelong lesson, right? Like, whether we choose to acknowledge that failure doesn't exist, failure is fallacy, and there's no such thing as failure because, like, you just keep going. There's always, like, what's next. Yeah. Or whether it's, like, okay, yep, failed hard on that one. Okay. So, like, you never know where that, like, what you learn from it, where the journey is going to take you next. So, don't fear failure, which is advice to myself too, because I am often very paralyzed by the fear of failure. I am a person that is, the number of leaps I don't take because I am not 100% certain I will make it is like, that should be my behind the bio. Like, that is every driving decision in my mind and something I constantly have to be working on myself. So don't fear failure, me. And everyone, that's it. Thank you for that lesson today and that amazing reminder. Okay, so with that, I'm Kate Snyder. I'm the CEO of Piper & Gold Public Relations in Lansing.
And I'm Carrie Rosingana, CEO of Capital Area Michigan Works. Thank you again for your time today. It's been amazing to be with all of you, and we can't wait to welcome our next group of guests for more amazing conversations on our Women in Workforce series.